L'kudei Halachas Yomi, Hilchos Tzitzis, Perek Daled. Here Rabbi Nosson is reviewing a very deep concept that's related to both the notion of the Beis HaMikdash and, of course, Yetzias Mitzrayim. And this is the idea that as it relates to Tzitzis. Tzitzis is a connection to the Kisei HaKavod, which represents a point which is considered above the time-space continuum, meaning it's not a makom tsar, it has no restrictions, it spreads throughout the entire world, like the Tzitzis goes, mi'arba kamfo sa'aretz. Here Rabbi Nosson explains that the Beis Mikdash itself has a place called the Even Shesiya. And this is well known, Ramchal writes about it, and Rabbi Nosson refers to it here, that Chazal say, it's called Even Shesiya, shemena hushtas kol haaretz. In fact, the world is woven, as it were, from the fabric of this stone. And therefore, in Hilchos 9 days, Tisha B'Av, a woman is not supposed to weave anything, like to knit a sweater, because this is a reminder of the loss of the Shechina, the disconnection of the Shechina from the Makom of Even Shesiya. Ramchal actually explains this idea that it's like a nerve center, or we would call it an electronic control center, or the hard drive of a computer, or whatever you want to call it. And there's literally like a root that branches out throughout the entire world from the Even Shesiya and gives life force energy to all things and all matter. So for example, if a certain type of vegetation grows in America or in Africa, it has a root that goes all the way back to the Even Shesiya. And if people understood that line, that energy line, was something that was miyuchad for a specific or specific item, then they would actually be able to tap into it and harvest it, because that is the control center of the entire world. And it is therefore, by definition, above time and space, because it descends and then covers all the areas. So Rav Nosson says that anybody who has tsaros, has problems, that's called Yetzias Mitzrayim. It comes from the concept of tsar li hamakom. It's a place where you're stuck in a particular space, in a particular moment, and there doesn't seem to be any escape from it. But that's not a reality, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu can lift you above that, and He does that regularly with Klal Yisrael. Did it with Avraham Avinu when He told him, "Tzei mi itztagnusa shecha," go get above the governing system of the stars and the planets, and I will lift you above and create from you a nation, a miraculous nation known as Klal Yisrael, which has no restrictions because it has an immortal soul. And therefore, Hashem specifically chose midnight, because that is the ultimate place of darkness and tsar, and lifted us above with Yetzias Mitzrayim and created us as a nation at that particular moment. Now, the idea Rav Nosson says is that Mitzrayim is a very, very unholy place. It says Ervas Haaretz, as Yosef referred to it, and it's extremely tameh, and that's why it's called Mitzrayim. It's a place of a Meitzar v'dochak. Because any place which is far away from the Kedusha, far away from the Shechina, the further it is, the more tzimtzum it feels. And the closer you are to Kedusha, which is known as the Makom, then you're closer to this idea of Lamalam and a Makom, Makom Moshe Olam. I will add, this is why we are Menachem Avelim by saying HaMakom Yenachem Eschem, because even at this moment is a terrible tsar for the family. But there's a koach of nechama that will lift them above this present tsar when they keep the loss in a certain perspective, that there's an eternal soul, and so on. And therefore, so Rabbi Nosson here is alluding to the fact that the Beis HaMikdash itself had this miracle of being both ma'at machzikas hamaruba. It could, like the Aron Kodesh, stayed in a space that seemed way too small for it, and yet it did. And similarly, as the Mishnah Nava says, no one ever said, Tsar li hamakom she'alim Yerushalayim, there's no room for Yerushalayim, or when they bowed down, they were mishtachavim, omdim tzufim, mishtachavim revachim, they would be seemingly packed shoulder to shoulder. When they came to bow down, everybody had adequate space. This is what happens in the realm of Kedusha closer to Hashem, in which which abrogates these natural laws, and we are lifted above our tsaros. a person could access this idea in their own personal life whenever they feel particularly stressed and crushed by whatever it might be, a difficult health problem, a difficult family problem, perhaps a financial problem, and it seems like a crushing situation that cannot be escaped from. Just to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be matzil us and lift us to a place that's l'malam and amakim azman. We should never, like we'll be in the Bechinas Yerushalayim, which of course is a makam which has no restrictions. It's the idea of Evan Shasiya, which is by definition mu'at ma'achzikas haruba. It's not an unrestricted space, and as it says in Shmuel, Yashes aleim tevel, the entire world is derives its energy from that place in a spiritual sense, and it's chiyus in his life, and that's why Yaakov Avinu, as we learn, when he slept at that place, vayifka b'makom vayalam sham, the entire Eretz Yisrael crumpled up under his head, because that was the Yerusha that he would give, and that's a primary example of Chazal's thinking that the kedusha of the Shvatim and of Yaakov Avinu give them the shlita over this miraculous land, which does not abide by the normal rules of nature, but is by a certain divine hashgacha pratis that we can all, if we're on that kedusha level, tap into.